will stop whoever is testifying when we do get a quorum to take roll, because I want this to be actually a full-blown committee hearing. So we're only going to hear one bill today. Just to give me an idea, how many, raise your hand if you're going to testify in favor of the bill. Okay, thank you. And against? Okay, that's not too bad. All right. And we will have information only, and I think we do have a quorum. So, Barb, would you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Senators Crawford.
Here.
Gregory. Brown. Huff. McCreary. Mosley. Trent.
We do have a quorum. So we're going to get started. Again, one bill, that is Senate Bill 79. Representative Gregory, when you're ready, you may begin.
Madam Chair, I hate to point out that I am a senator now, as opposed to 9 months ago when I was a representative.
Did I call you representative?
Yes, ma'am, you did, but that's quite all right.
My apologies, Senator. Hey, this is my first hearing. I got to get back in the groove.
Well, the fun one was we experienced in committee the other day is now that there's two Gregorys over here, I think we need to, like, Senator Big Gregory and Senator Little Gregory also. Or Senator with good hair and Senator with bad hair, but neither here nor there. So as I've learned as the clerk reads, State Senator Curtis Gregory of the 21st. I'm here to present Farm Bureau Health Plans, which is a piece of legislation, or Senate Bill 79, which is the Farm Bureau Health Plans, which is legislation that I've now carried this is the third year on it. Madam Chair, you carried this for the last 2 years. We actually had the first hearing on this in this committee with you 2 years ago, and met and got together and just the background on it and figured out some of the problems that were with it. And in that first year was, I think, when we made most of, if not all, the changes to the legislation from its original form. When it got to the floor, the way it was initially written was just specific to Farm Bureau, and thanks to an amendment from Senator Shore that was opened up to other membership organizations that met certain qualifications. And then through some concerns from industry, we also added, I think it's called intersectional references to certain pieces of statute. I can't tell you exactly which number is which, but I can tell you that is the prompt pay and no surprise billing. And that was to, as a consumer protection for the members that would be purchasing it, and then also for the hospitals or places that would be doing the billing, so they're going to get paid on time. So what this is, it's nothing new in terms of across the country. There's now 10 other states that have done it. I think when we first started along the quest, it was 6, and then a couple other states passed it last year. 2 more did, so now there's 10 other states that are allowing their Farm Bureau members to purchase health coverage. They started in Tennessee. They've been doing it for a long time. We've got an expert from Tennessee Farm Bureau who you've heard testify before that's very knowledgeable on the program. But they've been doing it, I think, for 75 to 80 years now. And when the Affordable Care Act came online, it is said that they looked at Tennessee and go, what do we do with this? It's not really insurance, but we know that lives are being covered, and that's the most important thing. And so at that point in time, when they could have stopped what was going on in the state of Tennessee, they allowed to let them continue. And so other states have continued to follow that. Missouri Farm Bureau is a membership organization, and health coverage is something that's been a big push from their members to try and get done. And they see the other states offering it, and they say, we want it here too. In the state of Missouri, there's around, in 21, working with a few dated numbers, but I imagine it hasn't changed much, 7.5% of Missourians don't have coverage. I was actually one of those 7.5% Missourians at one point in time. The job I was at went to a 1099 form of employment, so lost my health coverage. I went and priced what it would cost, and I said, there's absolutely no way I'm going to pay that much. I can't afford it, and I just will pay out of pocket. But at the end of the day, and actually I paid fines on my taxes because I didn't have health coverage, because under the Affordable Care Act, if you didn't have health coverage, you had to pay a penalty to the IRS. So I thought I was better off to go without coverage than to have anything. And then, I don't know, it's like a year later, I'm going, you dumb idiot, like, you're accident prone and you know this about yourself, and you've got kids. We need to have some type of coverage, and so we got some type of major medical plan that just covered, major medical type stuff. But what I can tell you about this is it will give options. It will give more options. In the state of Missouri, when you look at the Affordable Care Act, the marketplace plans, only 5 counties have access to 1 carrier, 20 counties have access to 2 carriers, and 27 have access to 3. So there's not a lot of options for competition to drive down those costs. And is that part that goes uncovered, it's a couple of reasons. Either A, they make too much, so they don't qualify for the subsidy, and then it's just they get priced out of the marketplace, or they aren't low enough to be on the subsidy, and so it leaves that gap in that donut hole. So if you're looking at Farm Bureau membership, 155,000 members, give or take, the target audience, if you go back to 7.5%, is 11,475 people, give or take a few, depending on how you math the math. So we're not talking about the entire state of Missouri, we're talking about Farm Bureau members. For me, if I would have had access to this, I would have jumped all over it. And it's a contract with coverage. Much like when I went to the New York Jets, it gets offered based on you yourself. I never bought it before. I don't know how it was. I was just a kid when you got underwritten on health insurance on yourself and your own health. But I have a story that's similar to that. When I went to the New York Jets, my right knee is messed up. I think everybody in the building probably knows it from playing football. When they offered me a contract, much like what would happen under the Farm Bureau health plans, they basically are underwriting my physical and athletic performance and saying, we think you can play for us. However, we know your right knee, in the words of the orthopedic doctor, is severely messed up. In my contract, it said, if my right knee down were to get injured, the New York Jets football club would not be responsible for covering any of that. I then had the option to either A, sign the contract and try and continue my career, or B, reject that contract and go on and try and find another team. And in talks with my agent at the time, we decided, yeah, that's probably not a wise thing to sign because it is pretty messed up and I'd kind of like to have it as long as I can. And so we rejected the contract, and that's when my NFL career ended. So kind of a bittersweet moment, but, looking back, did I make the right choice? I think I did. Members will have that same opportunity. They're going to get underwritten on themselves. If there is a pre-existing condition, there may be waiting periods for those. I read testimony on one of the websites, and I wish I would have printed it off a couple years ago, where there was a lady that was having problems finding coverage. It was too expensive. She had cancer at one point. It was in remission. And so when she got on, it was a 6-month waiting period. And I'm sure the gentleman from Tennessee can explain this a little bit better. Once, I think it was about month 5 on this testimonial, cancer did reoccur. And so for that first month, she was out of pocket for coverage. But in month 6, that coverage kicked in and paid for all of her medical costs associated with that. So it's a proven plan. It's working in other states. America First Policy Institute, I don't know if they're going to testify in informational purposes only, but they put out a paper March 7 of 2023. And I'll close shortly after this. The Tennessee Farm Bureau Health Plan premiums can be as much as 70% lower than other insurance. Missouri Farm Bureau has said that they're projecting there'll be 30% less cost than Affordable Care Act plans. Fiscal analysis from Iowa estimates that 83% of those covered by Farm Bureau health plans would otherwise be uninsured. So they're covering lives for people that otherwise wouldn't have coverage, and that's the main thing we're trying to do here. And the thing I'll leave you with, most importantly, they're not asking for a government handout. They're not asking money from the state. They're asking for the state to allow them to take on a liability to cover their members that are asking for this type of coverage. And to me, I think that's a noble thing to do. And let's give them that opportunity to cover more members.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for the bill sponsor? Senator Gregory.
Thank you. So if I'm understanding, and I've had some prior discussions too, so I think I get it, but basically we're an insurance company. We want to continue to provide insurance, but we want to do it differently. So we're going to provide insurance, but not under the insurance laws of Missouri. How exactly does that benefit, I guess, Farm Bureau in this situation? How does that benefit them to not be, why do they need to not be under our current laws?
That's a good question. That's just the only way that it would work. It has to be it's a non-regulated plan. But if you look at the way a lot of the insurance is sold in Missouri, like even our own health insurance through the state of Missouri for us in the legislature is not regulated by the Department of Commerce and Insurance because it's a self-funded plan. It's regulated under ERISA. And so that argument, I feel like, is a little loose at best. And when you look at the appeals process, I have it in here somewhere, it's a two-level appeal. And to me, knowing that if I were to have this, and I'm sold the bill of goods, so to speak, and if it doesn't meet that bill of goods, I know that I can go to my county level Farm Bureau meeting and I can race back with my county board. I can come down here to Jefferson City to the home office and meet with the president of the company and tell them I'm not happy with what you sold me. It's a member-driven organization, and members are going to handle it the best way that they see fit. And if they're not happy with their board of directors, they're going to have a direct line to get them voted out. So a claims process in the state of Tennessee, if we're going to get into that, because that seems like it might be a little bit of an issue. In 2022, there's around 2.8 million claims filed. From those claims, there's 244 appeals or grievances. In 173 of those appeals and grievances, the coverage determination was upheld, while 71 resulted in the coverage determination being overturned. So 2.8 million claims filed, only 173 appeals or grievances. And it's a level 1 and a level 2 appeals and grievance committee for the Tennessee model that follows kind of an industry standard where membership is composed of all aspects of the Farm Bureau in Tennessee, but then also medical professionals.
So I get it. And I generally like the idea. It just feels like that smaller company feel that you like. Why can't they do it under the current insurance laws? Why can't they do what you want under the current insurance laws? I'm just not understanding, that's all.
Just the way that it's written, it would completely go against my understanding, and I've asked the question myself so I can get the answer right, and maybe one of the experts behind me can come. But it would make the state of Missouri be completely saying that no one has to abide by what federal regulation is. And so the federal government, in my opinion, by allowing Tennessee to do this and continue in their current model, which was going on when the Affordable Care Act came online, they said, we are okay with this model continuing on. And that's why other states have copied it.
And obviously this Farm Bureau wants to service a plan under this technique. Can other insurance companies service the same plan under that same technique?
I don't believe they can. I think it would take a change in honestly, federal. But also in that same regard, we're going on year 3. That's been talked about. It's been mentioned before, but I've not had anything drafted or presented to me that would show that. But again, I say that would put us at complete odds with federal statute for all health insurance carriers.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Further questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, we're going to try to keep this under an hour if we can. So first up, in favor. And we will hear all in favor, then all opposed, and then informational. Be sure to fill out a witness form, as I'm sure you probably already have done so, and proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Leroy, and I'm here on behalf of Missouri Farm Bureau in support of Senate Bill 79. Missouri Farm Bureau is an agricultural member-driven organization, and one of our members' biggest unmet needs is access to affordable and high-quality health coverage. Our members are asking for this option. This is especially an issue for people who are self-employed, and many farmers fit into that category. The marketplace is not affordable for everyone, and some fall in that gap that Senator Gregory told us all about. As you may know, this is the 3rd year the Missouri Farm Bureau has pursued legislation to offer health plans. Our members continue to ask for it. They understand that this can be a tool that helps keep them on the farm or operate their small business. This legislation is simply another option to provide coverage for more people. Covering more lives means that people will have better health outcomes with access to comprehensive care, including preventative services. It also means that medical providers receive prompt payment for their services. It will mean that fewer Missourians are gambling their assets on future medical debt rather than being uninsured. While this concept is new to Missouri, the Tennessee Farm Bureau has been offering these plans to members for over 75 years, and since 2018, 9 other state farm bureaus have received approval to offer these plans. Now, 5 other states, including Missouri, are working to pass legislation this year. Simply put, if these plans were not working well for members, farm bureaus across the country would not be lining up to provide them. We are all membership organizations first and foremost. These plans balance coverage and affordability. We are not claiming to have a quick fix or a silver bullet for all individuals or situations, but this model does work well for some, and we've seen that replicated in 10 states. The worst thing that we can do is offer a product to our members that they do not understand or that does not fulfill their expectations. Differences from ACA compliant plans include individual medical underwriting and pre-existing condition waiting periods. Those differences are clearly spelled out, and anyone can view these marketing and enrollment materials online right now. And that is one of the key differences that'll make these plans more affordable, to Senator Gregory's question of why we need legislation to be able to do this. These plans would take us out of the regulated insurance marketplace, which would then mean that we'd be able to do things like on the front end, talk to our members about applying for this coverage, to go through individual underwriting, and then some would be accepted, others would be turned away. We have seen data in other states that it's about 9 out of 10 people are accepted, so high acceptance rates, and their premium is set based on their individual underwriting. And then, since it's not an open enrollment period that is isolated to a few months of the year, our members would be able to apply at any time, and there's a pre-existing condition waiting period for the issue of adverse selection, like all insurance faces. And so that's the primary difference and why we need legislation to do this. We recognize that it is different, but it has been a pressure-tested model that has worked well in our other states. So we fully expect that this will be a niche product. People who receive coverage through their employers or a subsidized marketplace plan will want to stick with that. They will, that may be the most attractive to those who are in the donut hole of affordability and those who are self-employed. Our goal is to be transparent, honest, and offer top quality service. That's what our members expect. Keep in mind that our organization is governed by a board of directors who are elected by their peers. Typically, our board of directors and President Garrett Hawkins would be here today, but they are attending the American Farm Bureau Federation convention, and they send their regrets. In closing, we are asking for approval to take care of our members and cover their risk with a service that they are asking for at no expense to taxpayers. Offering these plans will not remove any existing options or harm the existing marketplace. Data has bore that in other states. As policymakers, the decision is whether you should allow these plans in Missouri or if the status quo is good enough. Later today, I know you will hear critiques of these plans, but it's unlikely that you're going to hear any other solutions focused on affordability. We are asking to bring a solution for our members. Farm Bureau health plans would be a proven, reliable, and affordable option. We would like to thank Senator Gregory for sponsoring the legislation and Chairwoman Crawford for hosting the committee today, and I'm happy to drop by your office at any time or try to answer any questions you have now.
Questions for this witness? Senator Gregory.
So right now, why can't you offer that same type of qualified membership organization? Is it against federal law or is it against state law?
So the Affordable Care Act does not allow medical underwriting, and it makes insurers fall into a box. We are asking to align ourselves outside of that box with a focus on affordability and coverage, and that is not to undermine the ACA. The ACA serves an important purpose for many people, but there are folks who cannot afford the coverage that is available to them right now. Many of those happen to be our members. It happens to be people who are self-employed and who have that income that doesn't receive that federal assistance. So the ACA works well for many people. There are some who are left out, and that is who these products have serviced in other states.
Sure.
And that's the niche we're asking to fill.
Sounds like a good thing. Can other insurance companies participate under this change of law?
The way the bill is specifically written, it obviously lists Farm Bureau, and then there are several qualifications for nonprofit entities. We've heard from other groups behind us who would like to participate in these plans, but we would ask you all that if that's the case, that they file legislation and pursue that. We are coming to you in good faith. We have done so for 3 years. This is a model that we know that we can work with our partners in other states and plug in and implement well and quickly, and if other people believe that they can do that well, then that is ultimately a public policy decision for you.
And so by doing the individual underwriting that's not allowed under the ACA, I guess you're going to be able to help cover younger, healthier farmers, like healthier people, I'm assuming?
That there is some fact to that. So there are many people who will apply who have they have a medical history. We all do. So it's not that you have to be the picture of health. That being said, there are some things that are extremely costly, and that makes the pool go up for everybody. And that is where the ACA does a fantastic job of providing coverage to everybody. And that should stand. This is complementary, not meant to replace, not meant to delve into that pool. What we have heard many times from other states is that the people who are interested in these plans are the ones who are not in the ACA anyway.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Benjamin Sanders with Farm Bureau Health Plans of Tennessee. I appreciate the opportunity to be back here. We've been operating in Tennessee for 77 years. It's a great product for our Farm Bureau members and has just come to be part of the overall coverage option for Tennesseans. Madam Chairman, I could speak at great length about lots of stuff with our plans. I've been involved in all the states that Emily mentioned that have passed statutes in recent years. I thought it might be helpful if I compiled a few of the frequently asked questions that we get, because they tend to all funnel down into a few categories. If it's okay with you, I'll hit a few of those, and then afterwards happy to go into as much detail as your committee would like. The first question that we typically get is, why do you have to underwrite? And it's very simple. What we have learned in healthcare, you either get government subsidies or you manage cost on the front end. That's not good or bad or right or wrong, it's just different models. And since, as Senator Gregory had mentioned, we are not asking for any kind of subsidies or asking to sell subsidized plans, we manage cost on the front end. Another question we get is, what does your coverage look like? Again, there could be longer questions. I'm very proud of the coverage we offer. Broad coverages, robust benefits, broad networks, everything a family would want to see in a health coverage plan. I am particularly proud of the claims that I see, and this might sound a little odd, Chairman, the claims that I see when people have taken out a plan and then get sick because they're covered with their catastrophic illness. We pay tens of millions of dollars for cancer, leukemia, fill in the blank catastrophic illness. From that all the way down to primary and wellness care, I'm proud of the options and the coverages that we offer our members. A very frequent question we get is, do we harm the Affordable Care Act? I would say that 15 years ago, that was a very fair question. When the ACA passed in 2010, that was a good question. 15 years later, the data is very clear that not only do we not hurt the ACA, I argue that we enhance the marketplace. There's a couple of reasons for that. Emily very well put, or very well explained, that the people in Farm Bureau that look for these plans are not currently on the marketplace. They're in a niche that is not currently covered, or they don't feel like they have a good option. So we're taking people from the uninsured category, generally speaking, into the insured category. If you look at the metrics, every state that has passed a Farm Bureau health plan statute has seen an increase in ACA enrollment since then. Now, I suppose you could theoretically argue that maybe the ACA enrollment would have gone up more, but you can't argue that it has hurt the marketplace, and I'm proud for that. Along with that, we often get the question, what is the target market? How many covered lives can a state expect? Difficult question to answer, but you can pencil this out a little bit. In Tennessee, we've been operating for 77 years. We now are on third to sometimes fourth generation people born into our plans. And with all of that, we cover less than 1% of the population. The target audience is a very small, very finite population. We cover 7% of the Farm Bureau membership in Tennessee. If you extrapolate that to Missouri, it would be estimated that if this plan went into place and went swimmingly well, that in 5 years there might be 10,000 covered lives in Missouri. Now, to those 10,000, it's critically important. But in the grand scheme of things, when there's currently 360,000 in the ACA marketplace, it is a very finite pool. We get the question sometimes, aren't your members confused? These contracts are long and they're difficult and all of that, and that's a fair question, but we don't hear that from our members, who seem to be very pleased. Our members are able to leave our plans at any time with 10 days' notice. We are on the hook to keep them when they're in the plan, but they can leave us at any time. And with that, we routinely have a 98% retention ratio. I think that speaks to how well our members are both satisfied and how much they understand their plans. We get the question, if you are not a regulated entity, what recourse do your members have? Senator Gregory mentioned in reference, we have a multi-tier grievance and complaint process that is formalized in a contract. We have those formalized processes, but it also ignores that in the Farm Bureau world, in the Farm Bureau membership, we have a built-in complaint process. When someone has a complaint, they don't have to call an ERISA official in Washington, for example. They call their local Farm Bureau board. They call me. They call people they know. The Farm Bureau is a small community, and people know who to call, and I'm proud that that kind of communication flows. We also, I'll mention on that, we voluntarily comply with the Department of Insurance complaint process. To my knowledge, we're the only self-insured group that is exempt from that, but still voluntarily complies, and we do that to make sure that our members feel like they have every option to provide input. We get the question, and just a couple more, Chairman, we get the question, what happens when someone gets sick? And the answer is we pay their claims. Their premium doesn't go up, and we can't drop them when they pay their claims. That is encapsulated in their contract. Those contracts don't expire. As long as they pay their premiums and as long as they maintain their Farm Bureau membership, we keep them on the rolls, and their individual premium is never affected by their claims. And then the last question, and I think that Senator Gregory suggested this earlier, why is this limited to Farm Bureau? I personally believe that there is not a one-size-fits-all in health care. When you take a higher level look, there is a tradition in U.S. healthcare policy to provide flexibility to individual groups that are self-insuring their own population. Sometimes that's designated by metrics. You can see that in ERISA. Sometimes that's designated by name, and I can give some examples of that as well. This is not a new concept. It is difficult for us to opine on whether someone else should or shouldn't have this flexibility. As Emily said, that's a question for the legislature. I would suggest that any entity that can demonstrate the credibility and the capability of managing their own population should be given the opportunity to opine and to ask for that flexibility. I'm not sure if anybody else has. In Tennessee, that happens periodically, and we in Farm Bureau in Tennessee are always supportive of that because we believe more coverage for more people is always a good thing. The Farm Bureau in Missouri is an established entity. They're not asking for a concept, they're asking for the ability to implement a proven model. It's worked well in Tennessee, it's working very well in multiple other states, and I'm proud that the Farm Bureau here is exploring it. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for coming back to Missouri again. Next up in favor. And I would just ask that you try not to repeat anything that we've heard. The first couple of witnesses have been pretty thorough, so if we can maybe just give additional information, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Senators. I think I'll offer a little bit different perspective. Sean Cornelius. I'm a dairy farmer and a dairy nutritionist from Hamilton, Missouri. I'm also here today as a Caldwell County Farm Bureau president. I'm asking your support for Senate Bill 79. As a self-employed person, I have trouble finding affordable health care for myself and my family. We've been able to buy a policy through what's known as the marketplace for several years. Right now, we do qualify for a partial subsidy to be able to afford that plan and that premium. While that's helpful, I know that the affordability of my coverage is totally dependent on the variability of my income as a self-employed person, as a farmer and a nutritionist. My income is affected by many things that might be or that are out of my control. Weather, commodity prices, inputs. As a businessman, I'm always working to improve the farm and my revenue. If I have a successful year, I can be penalized and no longer qualify for the premium available on my plan through the marketplace. Today, a Farm Bureau health plan may not be the least expensive plan for my current situation, but next year, it very well may be my best option. Having variable income leads to uncertainty and the need to change plans and providers. I have switched plans the last 2 years. This has caused me to switch networks, causing me to seek self-pay options, and weighing the pros and cons of whether I should save money out of pocket but run the risk of not being able to pay towards my current $9,600 deductible. That's per person in my family. In my consulting business, I use a small airplane. I'm a pilot. I enjoy flying to different places. My wife does not like to fly. She's a rather reluctant passenger at times. I can recall one of our early trips. She asked me, "Where's the parachute?" I had to inform her there was no parachute in my small airplane, and she said, "I'd just like to have the option." I'm asking for your support to give us an option. I believe Senate Bill 79 will allow Missourians like me, both farmers and non-farmers alike, to find a health plan option that would be more affordable from both a premium and a deductible perspective, as well as offering more options for provider networks and give me some stability. Please support Senate Bill 79. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up in favor.
Hello, my name is Megan Richner. I am a mom. I am the wife of a self-employed farmer, a small business owner, and we are beef cattle farmers from Cedar County, Missouri. So I am here to testify in support of Senate Bill 79. First off, when I look at this bill and I think about why am I here today to testify for this, I really look at how it'll help families. How is it going to help families in my community? How will it help families in Missouri? And for myself and my family's story, every year we go back to the drawing board and we look at what are our health coverage options. And I know I have had this conversation with fellow teachers who also farm and ranch. And every year we're all kind of talking about, okay, what type of coverage are we going to get? What is affordable for our family? And personally for my family, I know we have had everything from high deductible plans, catastrophic plans, share plans. Every year we kind of look at and we budget what will fit our budget for the next year. And my husband is also self-employed, and being a rancher, our income also fluctuate as well. So we really have to look at how will this bill affect our families and other families in our community. And so that's why I'm here today, is because it would definitely serve as another option when we're in that decision-making process, deciding what plan is going to be best for our family. Second reason why I'm here today in support of this bill is because I have been involved in Missouri Farm Bureau for over 20 years. We have our home, we have our farm, we have our automobile insurance with Missouri Farm Bureau, and when my husband and I think about businesses and organizations that we support and we put our money into, we pick organizations that we trust, people that we know, organizations with integrity, and those people that we have personal relationships with. And Missouri Farm Bureau is unique, and there's one thing that I really value. It's ran by that board of directors and the president. And what other organization, for me personally, I have those phone numbers, those cell phone numbers. What other organization do we have that direct line or that direct means of communication with these people when we do have a problem? I know for myself, I have personally reached out to my state board members when I've needed advice, I've needed help, and they've always been there to listen, to support, and to be able to give that a guidance and direction. And so that's another reason why I'm supporting this option. Options for families in my communities to have some affordable coverage, but also this organization with that personal relationship to serve their members at the grassroots level. I hope you consider supporting this bill, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here, Megan. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you, too. Next up in favor.
All right, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Ben Travalos with the Missouri Soybean Association. Want to go on record in support of this legislation. Per the chairwoman's request, I'll keep this brief and not repeat things that have been said. I think Emily and Tennessee Ben have conveyed things pretty well. The one thing I will say is, I've got a lot of buddies that are, in that age range where they're transitioning off of their parents' insurance, that 26 time frame right there. And the reality is that I've got a lot of buddies that are opting to go without coverage altogether. And having just gone through shoulder surgery and seeing what the cost of those medical bills were, which was a minor surgery compared to what some people have to endure, and knowing that this plan works and has been working for decades in other states, definitely believe that this could work in the state of Missouri. And so with that, be happy to answer any questions.
So you're not just wearing that for a prop for today's
No,
hearing,
ma'am,
right?
I am not. I was wondering if you're going to ding me for that or not.
Actually, I saw you wear it the other day. So questions for this
They
witness?
did downsize it.
Seeing no questions, thank you, Ben. Next up
Now
in
they gotta
favor.
put the pillow on the strap.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jacob Knable with Missouri Corn Growers Association, and we would like to go on the record in support of Senate Bill 79 as well. I'll try my best not to reiterate testimony that's already been offered, but would just like to hit on the point that, as the previous testimony has already established, the ever-increasing cost of health care is yet another hurdle that many beginning farmers face today when debating whether or not they should return to the farm. Now, do I believe that this bill is a magic silver bullet that's going to take care of all of our beginning farmer and insurance needs in the state? No. But I do believe it will move the needle in the right direction to offer a plan and eliminate a major roadblock for those who feel they have no other options. I do believe it makes a difference to those farmers who are choosing to go uninsured in what is one of the most hazardous occupations our state has to offer. And so with that, I would urge this committee to once again move this bill out of committee.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, James Harris representing FGA Action, go on the record in support. Two things I'd like to mention is one, someone asked on the committee, could this be expanded to other groups? And, that's your purview, could be. But if you're trying to get a proof of concept or to check a group, Missouri Farm Bureau is probably a good place to start because they're a large organization, so they could, in theory, be able to pool a good group together to get better rates. And the other thing, keep in mind, it's kind of been mentioned, is, some people might have access, but might be one, option in their area, might be a little more expensive than they want. And as I get more gray hair, I've realized health insurance, I probably think of a little more now than maybe 20 years ago, as far as if I was trying to do a budget. And if you have an option that maybe it's not perfect but costs less, for some people that's a great thing for them to consider and hopefully have coverage. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Alfred Brandt. I represent Missouri Dairy and dairy farmers across the state. And one of the problems that we have in the dairy industry is it's so labor intensive, and many of our young dairymen that are coming back to the farm, their spouse is going to work for the sole purpose of providing insurance. When that, and between the insurance and the child care, there's not a lot of income left after that spouse goes to work, where they'd be better off staying home and helping out on the farm and working that way. So Missouri Dairy is very much in support of this and any type of alternative to health care that we can get, because I retired from the dairy farm a year ago, and my wife and I both worked self-employed, and we certainly see the issues with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Next up in favor? Just a quick raise of hands. How many more in favor? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Corey Koopmans. I'm the president of the Missouri Association of Nurse Anesthetists. Myself and my organization, we are in favor of Senate Bill 79. As nurse anesthetists, we provide the majority of anesthetics in the rural counties in Missouri, and therefore we are 100% in favor of flexible, affordable insurance options for rural Missourians.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up, and I think this is maybe last.
Good afternoon. My name is Elena Fork with the Association of Missouri Electric Cooperatives, and we just wanted to go on record in support of Senate Bill 79. Many of our member owners are also members of the Farm Bureau, and this type of legislation could be beneficial to our members. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. One last call. Anyone else in favor? Seeing none, first up in opposition.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman. My name is Hampton Williams. I'm the General Counsel for the Missouri Insurance Coalition, and we're testifying in opposition to this bill today. First, I'd like to thank Senator Curtis Gregory, for filing the bill and speaking to the matters and attentions of rural Missourians. He's always been a champion for those, and we appreciate that that's where this is coming from. However, we speak in opposition to this specific proposal on the basis that it creates an unregulated product that would compete with regulated health insurance products, which my membership currently markets and sells in the state of Missouri. Now, to participate in the existing health insurance market, our members are subject to a rigorous set of statutes and regulations, both federal and state. And those regulations set forth a number of directives. Our insurance providers are subject to examinations and licensure at the state level. And there are costs that are associated with those compliance issues. Now, undoubtedly, the costs and the requirements of both the federal and state mandates are involved in how the prices for the regulated products are set. And I think that Senator Gregory's proposal is aimed at expanding the markets to focus on innovations. However, by the means that he's doing it, by offering an unregulated product, would allow a competitive advantage to organizations like the Farm Bureau or any future organization that would be involved in offering these health benefit contracts. I don't believe it should be the policy of the state to give a market advantage to companies selling unregulated products over those who are offering existing health insurance products and who have been lawfully operating within the state statutes and regulations. We've earlier heard testimony regarding the adoption of and I guess the capacity of the existing market to respond to needs in the state of Missouri. Like many states, there's actually been an increase in the use of ACA products. So we've seen upwards of 360,000 individuals as of last year enter the ACA markets, which is up from approximately 220,000 only 4 years ago. We think that the market is capable. However, this type of unregulated product, which is again going to be competing against our regulated markets, does have the ability to undercut the available members who would otherwise be healthy and have less medical needs, entering at kind of a younger age and at a lower cost. One thing to also consider is that the membership of the Farm Bureau or those that would be qualified under this is not limited to the membership today. I mean, the Farm Bureau, to be a member, it's $30. The barrier of that does not require that you own a farm or it's a membership into a product. So to the extent that this were to enter a marketplace at a lower, even 30 or 40%, like as they've said, would put in a competitive advantage that we think would harm the existing members that are complying with our state and regulations. Now, if the conversation is how to address the regulations that establish these barriers and kind of allow for some more innovation that the current providers could have access to or could participate in, that's an interesting conversation, one that I'd be glad to work with Senator Gregory's office on. But as it stands today, as these type of products are limited just to a specific class of providers, we would speak in opposition.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions for this witness? Senator Gregory.
Thank you. A couple quick questions. First off, I understand the competitive advantage argument. we have a real problem, it seems like, in the rural areas and with our farmers and health insurance. I think health insurance is way too high anyway. And the Farm Bureau is bringing us a real solution, which is something we need to take a serious look at. Are there any other folks within MIC or any other groups that are looking to do something to solve the problem that we have?
Well, the answer is, am I aware of other independent organizations that are seeking to
anyone else
offer
that wants to do the
alternatives?
same thing? Or?
The short answer off the top of my head, Senator, the answer is no, I don't. That doesn't mean that there aren't, but I'll be happy to get back with you on that answer.
Okay. Okay, no more questions.
Further questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in opposition.
Hi. Emily Kelmer, American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 79. Senate Bill 79 authorizes the sale of products that could discriminate against Missourians with pre-existing conditions like cancer. This bill would leave Missourians, including cancer patients, exposed to medical and financial harms. I know I've testified before this committee in the past, in several years, about our concerns with this legislation because it would not only allow the Farm Bureau not to have to comply with those protections for pre-existing conditions through the ACA, but it also would allow them to not comply with any of the insurance protections in state law that our organization has spent a number of years advocating for before this legislature. So, but going back to the pre-existing condition piece, one of the things I heard from legislators last year when we talked about this was they wanted to know some examples. And, we talked about the experience of cancer patients when they could be denied coverage based on their cancer history, things like that in the past, and how that had not been positive for cancer patients. But I did take a little time to do some additional information gathering over the interim and wanted to share with you some experiences that we were able to learn from Kansas and Tennessee with these Farm Bureau plans. So, for instance, we heard from a Tennessee Farm Bureau enrollee that, that when they filled out the application, because they had had a mammogram and it required them to get a biopsy in the past, a negative biopsy, no cancer, they were offered a plan with a 7-year exclusion for anything related to their breasts. So if there was any mammograms that they had they're paying for them out of pocket. They said they were allowed to count those toward their deductible, but they had to pay for them. And then if they had any sort of diagnosis, unfortunately, in the next 7 years, that would be all on them. So these are the types of situations that don't help cancer patients when they unfortunately are diagnosed and then are put in a situation where they can't afford their treatment and they are not able to get the care that they need to help them survive. Now, I know there was some mention of the ability to, they can always leave at any time, but because this is not considered insurance under federal law, the open enrollment period for the exchange is at a certain period of time. It would not qualify them for a special enrollment period. So if they're unfortunately diagnosed at a time when that's not an option, they're going to have to wait till the next plan year to then be able to try to enroll in a product that, and every day counts when you have a cancer diagnosis, right? So even if someone's only left with a month of coverage, most cancer patients experience most of their costs in the first 3 months of their diagnosis, and that can be financially devastating. So when we're talking about affordability, we're talking about affordability of comprehensive health insurance that would provide people the treatment they need throughout a devastating diagnosis like cancer, not just with the premiums. So just one other example from Kansas of a woman who did attempt to complain to the Kansas Department of Insurance and unfortunately was told that they are not health insurance and as such do not fall under their jurisdiction. She was denied coverage for what looks like an infusion that her doctor wanted her to have. subsequently had to be life-flighted to Denver, left with a $40,000 medical bill, and, you know, when trying to seek intervention, was told this isn't a regulated product, they can't help her. Not clear on whether any of the no surprises provisions from federal law apply. So, you know, I know there's mention that everybody knows about this and they can contact their Farm Bureau, their board member. Unfortunately, we did hear from several people who said that they were not told by their Farm Bureau agent when they were filling out the application that this wasn't covered by the insurance laws, and also that, you know, just if you're going through a cancer diagnosis and you receive this information, you're dealing with quite a bit on your plate. There are no legal protections for these folks. While they may attempt to reach out to their Farm Bureau member, and maybe the Farm Bureau has voluntarily complied with some other, you know, third-party review kind of things, legally they're not required to do any of that. And if in future years they can do any type of underwriting that they would like, even if that's not what they're doing currently. So, sorry, that's a lot, and I know there's other people who want to testify, so just wanted to share that information.
Questions for this witness? I do have maybe one question. Would you rather, we've heard testimony previously that several of the people that get the Farm Bureau insurance product or their health care product don't have any insurance until they get that. Would you rather them have no insurance or this Farm Bureau policy? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So our organization principles are we're looking for affordable, comprehensive insurance that provides adequate coverage for cancer patients. We don't want folks to be left in the back end in a situation that would leave them in financial and medical harm. So I know they're talking about this as an option, but for cancer patients, it's not an option that would provide them the coverage they need.
And would you agree that some cancer patients do get covered through the Farm Bureau product if they are in place before they get the insurance?
That's what I've heard from the Farm Bureau. I don't know. They're not a regulated product. I don't have any real information. But yes, I'm sure that they do cover some cancer patients for some treatments. Whether they cover everything that they need to help them survive their cancer, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up in opposition.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. My name is Matthew Porter. I'm actually coming at this from a patient perspective. I'm not a member of any of the lobbying groups, not a member of the insurance. I'm just somebody here that is talking from the patient perspective against this. Some of you actually may remember me. 3 years ago, I actually ran 103 miles to get here from my house in St. Charles. That is actually truly nonstop. If you don't know, I tore my right hip at mile 9. I tore my left calf at mile 48. My suit, when I put it on, it looked like I was wearing skinny jeans on the left-hand side because my leg was so swollen. I completed that run because I believe in doing hard things head on, no matter how difficult they are. Today I stand before you not only as a concerned Missourian, I stand before you as somebody personally affected by a chronic disease. So I did that run, and I have multiple sclerosis. I have 41 lesions on my brain and spine. I'm clinically probably not supposed to be able to walk. My life and that tragedy were shaped on the day of that diagnosis. And thankfully, I have comprehensive health insurance. I was diagnosed with MS 10 years ago. On September 27th of last year, there was a 51% chance that I would require mobility assistance. I don't. At the time, I had no idea what that diagnosis would do, how it would impact my life or my family. MS is a disease that doesn't just attack your body, it actually attacks your future. Without proper treatment, the disease progresses unpredictably. If you go without a relapse in the first 5 years, your numbers, your lifespan improves drastically. If you have a relapse in the first 5 years, you're going to lose 10 to 15 years of your life and around 9 to 12 quality years. Patients like that lose the ability to walk, to work, to live independently. I know that this reality is way, way real. I also know that it's possible to actually try to push that off when you have the right support. Thanks to my insurance, and those are words I thought I would never utter, I just want to be crystal clear. Sorry, insurance guy. I was able to start my treatment almost immediately. That early intervention was critical, going back to those statistics that I shared. My infusions cost $31,000, and they are every 4 weeks. I want to be clear, because everybody's like, that's once a month. No. Every 4 weeks. 13 a year, $31,000 a year, or $31,000 per infusion. But they're only part of my medical cost. From the specialists, the MRIs, the additional therapies, the medications, my total medical cost oftentimes exceeds $700,000. When I go onto United Healthcare in late November, December, and I pull up how much did they spend on me, I think they actually have to expand the screen just to get the number out there. Without insurance, these costs would have been catastrophic. So I'm a statistician by trade, by education. So I want to put it in perspective, because we've heard numbers up here today. 10,000 members of the Farm Bureau pay $10,000. That's $100 million spent. My cost would represent 1% of all the money that the Farm Bureau received for this plan, which is why I have concerns about the longevity, the viability of these. Without this coverage, I would not be standing here today. Without my coverage, I would not have been able to run to the Capitol. I would not be able to even walk. But MS is not just about mobility. It impacts ability to clearly think, your energy levels, and even your basic independence. If I had been forced to choose between paying for my insurance, or paying for my treatments, or providing for my family, my story would have turned out very differently. I would not have been able to build and grow a business. I built a business. We serviced corporate infrastructure. We serviced government infrastructure. I would not have been able to sell that business last year. You guys are going to get a nice check. It's the state of Missouri, I assure you. And that successful transaction, and we supported hundreds of families. I might have been forced out of the workforce entirely. I might have spent my time and energy fighting to pay medical bills or searching for adequate care. This is why the expansion of the Farm Bureau Health Plan under SB79 is so dangerous. These plans are not required to cover essential health care costs, limit out-of-pocket costs, and provide coverage for pre-existing conditions like MS. Missouri farmers, in particular, as we've heard, face enough uncertainty already. They must contend with unpredictable weather, volatile commodity markets, and other factors beyond their control. I just think the last thing they should have to worry about is whether their insurance is actually insurance and will protect them or their children when they need it. And I'm bringing up the children intentionally. In the last 2 years, I have mentored 3 teenagers who have been diagnosed with MS, not just them, but their families. These young people are starting their lives already facing a monumental challenge. A young person with MS could easily be denied critical care under this plan, leaving their families overwhelmed by financial and emotional burdens. The Farm Bureau health plans may appear attractive because of their lower premiums, but the reality is that they come at a cost of basic consumer protections. These plans would destabilize the individual market, drive up premiums for comprehensive insurance, and leave thousands of Missourians exposed to catastrophic cost. We have seen this happen in other states, and the results are devastating. In Missouri, we've always had a long history of protecting our people. Passing SB 79 would represent a step backward, prioritize unregulated, insufficient coverage over the well-being of our citizens. For me, access to comprehensive health insurance is the reason I can walk. The reason I was able to run to this Capitol 3 years ago. My wife was going to kill me if I ever decided to do it again. I just want that on the record, if you guys don't mind. And the reason I was able to build a business, and this is the reason I can stand here before you today. So I urge you to reject this bill and uphold our principles. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, in opposition.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Trent Watson here on behalf of the American Heart Association. Just want to register our opposition to Senate Bill 79. You would have gotten an email from Maura Patel, who's our government relations person, laying out our opposition. I don't need to read it to you. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Next up in opposition.
Can you hear me?
It's his fault, not yours.
My name is Laura Turner with the American Lung Association. I apologize for my scratchy voice. I'm not going to take that long because I also have testimony to leave, and I'll email it to all of you. But we support Americans with lung disease, and we wanted to register opposition to this bill as well, and I've lined that out in my testimony. So feel free to ask any questions, and I'd love to follow up later on as well.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here today. Next up in opposition.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, Shannon Cooper today representing Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City, and want to go on record in opposition of this legislation as we've done in the past 3 years, and maybe provide a little historical knowledge on how we got here, because the folks supporting this bill make this concept sound wonderful. And in fact, for years as a industry, we tried to do the very same thing, is provide health plans where we can pick and choose who we want in the plan, where we can decide what kind of coverage we want to offer, what kind of mandates we want to offer, what kind of services we want to offer, and when we can discontinue that relationship. But unfortunately, you as state legislators and our federal peers in Washington, D.C. have said there is no way we're going to let you do that. And that's where we find ourselves today. It is a rare day when the insurance industry sides with the advocate community, but we all have the same concern here, and that is these products sound like insurance, but they don't follow the same rules that we have to play by, and I think that's our greatest frustration. And if this was truly about the farmers, and Madam Chairman, you know this, the first year this was offered, we agreed to that. If this is about taking care of farmers, that small percentage of our population that need help, we were all for it. And I was told very bluntly that this was for anybody that wanted to pay $30 for that Farm Bureau membership. So let's not get confused here and think that as an industry we're against our farmers. We're not. We offered that compromise, and we were told, heck no. We also offered the compromise that said, then let us get in. Let's have the same parameters for anybody that wants to hop in this marketplace. And once again, we were clearly told, no way. We don't want you out there competing against us. Because the reality is, if you would let any of our regulated plans sell a plan like this, I could be 30% cheaper right out of the gate than what they can offer coverage for, because we're the experts at doing this. Once again, we were told no. So we find ourselves here again, 3 years down the road, opposing this legislation. We're happy to sit down and see if there is a compromise out there. But when you held one part of the industry to one standard, and then let somebody else sell the same products, provide the same services with no regulation whatsoever, we bristle at that, and we will continue to do that. And I'll close because I can see we're getting out of time. But, you know, last week, President Trump was in North Carolina, and he was talking to some of the victims of the hurricane. And he had one young family up there, and their house had been destroyed. And he asked them how things were going, and are you moving forward? And I won't name the insurance company that they were having issues with. You can go online and you can find it, but here's what I'll tell you. That family in North Carolina, they had recourse. They had a referee that they could go to that they didn't have to pay out of their pocket to make sure that that company followed through with that policy on what they had promised. And if you let this pass and become law, your constituents don't have that referee. They have to dig into their pocket. If there is a dispute, and Emily talked about this, when they decide we're not covering that, there is no recourse. There is not a director of the Department of Insurance. They can't call their state senator and say, I need some help. They have to go hire an attorney and fight a very large and well-heeled company. And we just don't think that's right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, I guess you're off the hook.
I saw you moving towards that button. Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none, informational purposes only.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Rob Monsess with Missouri Hospital Association. This is a very challenging issue. A lot of the reasons that people came forward and testified in opposition, we would typically be right there alongside of them. I will tell you that I've got decades of experience with Missouri Farm Bureau personally, and I think that speaks to just history and comfort with their organization. I appreciate all the work that has been done to make changes to this, to get our association into a neutral position. I would say that when this first came up, we contacted our colleagues in the state of Tennessee with the Tennessee Hospital Association and asked them about their experience, and our information from them was very, very positive. So it's a very complicated situation for the committee, and I'm sorry I can't say we're for it or against it, but we wanted to provide that balanced information for our experience.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Anyone else for informational purposes only? Okay, well, this will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 79. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a first and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. And we're adjourned.